So a little bit of a preamble, because I know the kind of lessons that involve lying on your front are tough for me. And so over the years, I've made sure that there's always something in my office or in the studio in which I'm teaching that people can use to help. So I've got such a fusion in these upper vertebrae up here that this shape, if I lie on the ground, it's like my face is plowing into the ground, and it gets really uncomfortable, difficult to breathe. So I have foam pads about that square. And if I lie my torso from the hip joints to the shoulder joints on the foam pads, that means my head has somewhere to go, and I have something to sink into that will conform to my shape. And I'm saying this to you now because the lesson that we're about to do is a lying on the front lesson. And should you have similar difficulties to me, know that you can shape the ground to fit you. Yeah. So this is almost long enough for me to lie on and still have that. Yeah, it's almost high enough. I could do that, but I know that as soon as I go to roll one side or the other, it's not wide enough. I know that I'm going to slip off. I know I'm going to slip off. So, but it's good enough. So if you know that that's the case, please create an appropriate environment for yourself that will allow you to continue with the lesson without having to suffer too much. Okay? Just an insider perspective from someone who does have difficulties. Absolutely. So that's why I was suggesting to you, if you think you will experience some difficulty, it will be a twisting lesson. You like that? Yeah. So I wanted to let you know ahead so that you could create the environment that will allow you to continue. You could if it was soft enough. These are too firm and they're too unstable. Yeah, good. Yeah. No, I'm saying, I know I have difficulties. I make sure that I can set up an environment for myself where I can do these kinds of lessons. And I've learned to have the materials in my office for those who might have similar difficulties. You want to experiment? Experiment. Okay. Please lie on your front. I'll offer one more comment about creating an appropriate environment, and that is the materials that you choose don't change very much during the lesson, but it could very well be that you change as the lesson goes on, and possibly how much support or how little support you need will vary. So stay awake to that's a possibility. that you might need to take stuff out or put more stuff in as you go. And I guess that's what we're really good at as human beings, you know. Too hot, put on the air conditioner. Too cold, put on the heater. It's doing it just right where we don't ruin ourselves and we don't ruin the environment. That's the balance that we want to strike. We don't want to ruin the environment of our body, and we certainly don't want to ruin the environment that the body lives in, which is called the world. Notice to which side have you turned your head, or if you've decided to turn your head at all. Where have you placed your arms? If your legs are long, how have you placed your ankles and your feet? What's the distance between the legs? So check in. You know, when you're using public transport and you're using those apps where you type in where is your current location and where is the destination that you want to get to. You need to know where your current location is. This is what you're doing right now. What is your current location? What is your current state? And then from there, you can go on a journey. You can always come back and head off again. Bend your right knee so that what? So that there's a 90-degree angle in your knee. Now, for some of you, that might mean something. It might have a feeling associated with it. So I'll say it a different way. You know, when you get a cardboard box and it's a cube, imagine your thigh. One side of the cardboard box was resting on your thigh, and your calf muscle was resting on the other side of the cardboard box. That would be a 90-degree angle. Now, intentionally move your lower leg in the knee joint so that the heel comes a little closer to the same side buttock, and then return, and then do the opposite. In other words, flex and extend your knee, always registering when you're passing through that place that was 90 degrees perpendicular. And notice, when does your leg start to feel heavier? When does it start to feel lighter? I'm talking about the lower leg and the foot. Theoretically, when your shin bone is perpendicular, the weight is passing through that material we call bone, and you experience less weight because your muscles aren't doing so much hard work. Theoretically. But what do you experience? When do you feel that the leg is lighter, the leg is heavier? And is that possible to separate out from the tensioning that you feel in your muscle to move your leg? Find the lightest place. Yeah. Where does the lower leg feel the lightest? And at the end of that lower leg, you have an ankle and you have a foot. Thank goodness. Great. Now that you've found that, Well, most of you have. Remember what that feels like, because you'll be coming back to there in a moment. Lower that foot to the floor, bend the left knee, and go looking for the same feeling in the lower leg with the left knee. The left lower leg, the left foot. Where is that place when it seems like your lower leg is much lighter than anywhere else? Please don't operate under the assumption that it will be the same as the other leg. It's not necessarily true according to your feeling, according to your sensation. It may not be true. Great. Now, when you found that place of lightness, stop there. Feel the relationship between your lower leg and your thigh. There's a very particular relationship between the two at that place that you call the back of your knee. So remember the feeling, remember the relationship. Now lower your leg, pause a moment. And, you know, when you and I start speaking in this way in an awareness through movement lesson, for people that don't know anything about their movement at all, it sounds like gobbledygook. Maybe there's different ways of saying it, talking about it, depending on who you're presenting to. But I'm presenting to you as Feldenkrais teachers, so I don't think it's gobbledygook to you. Is it? Bend both knees and have the lower legs positioned so that they both feel light, even though they might not be in exactly the same positions. Now, maintain the positions of your lower legs more or less, and start to move your feet in your ankle joints so that the toes go closer to the floor, return, and then closer to the ceiling, and then return. Notice that I'm using a room frame of reference, not a body frame of reference. You maintain the angle in your knee. You don't necessarily change too much the angle in your knees. You keep them bent, and you move your feet in your ankle joints so that the toes get closer to the floor or closer to your shin, the front of your shin, and then the toes get further away from the front of your shin, closer to the ceiling. That's it. Just that. If someone was to ask you, what is the quality of that movement that you experience in your ankle joints and in your toes? Is there a word that comes to mind that you don't have to say it, but you can say it to yourself that would describe that quality? Gradually make the movement smoother. No lumps, no bumps, smooth. Those of you who bake, you know when you're making the cake mixture, you try to get rid of the lumps, but don't beat yourself up to get rid of the lumps in your movement. Now, stop. Remember that smooth quality and lower your legs and paws. Put one hand on top of the other and rest your forehead on the back of the uppermost hand. Imagine that your eyelids were like hammocks and your eyeballs were resting in the hammocks of your eyelids. Slowly start to move your eyes as if to look at your forehead and then return, and then as if to look at your chin and then return. And seek the same quality that you had with your ankles a moment ago, that the motion of the eyes is smooth, becomes smoothed out over time. No lumps, no bumps, no stuck bits, fluid. And then bring your eyes to the place that you started from. Maybe that's a new place. I don't know. It could be. And now from here, move your eyes to the right as if you wanted to see your right ear, and then to the left as if you wanted to see your left ear. Go right and left. And again, over time, smooth out the journey of the eyes. Wonderful. Bring your eyes to the place that you thought you started from and rest. Neuromuscularly, smoothness is the quality of excellent coordination. This quality of muscles cooperating in such smooth, regular fashion that there is no interruption. Thinking of another analogy. Okay, so if you think of relay races in running, you have one person running with the baton, and then they come to that moment where they have to pass the baton on to the next person. That moment can win or lose a race. The smoother transition, the more likely a win. The more clunky the transition, the more likely a loss. So it's one runner matching the speed to the other runner, and then there's just a transition. It's like the race never stopped. It's like the same runner continues, but it's a different runner. It's exactly the same in your musculature. The baton that is getting passed along is your intention. Keep going left, keep going left, keep going left, keep going left. Now change direction, keep going right, keep going right. Moment by moment, different muscle fibers are turning on, switching off, turning on, switching off. And when it's just right, it feels smooth. You don't notice the transitions. Bend your knees. Arrange your legs like you had found before so that the lower legs feel light to you. Start to bend and unbend your ankles like you were doing before so that the toes go towards your shin, then away from your shin, towards your shin, away from your shin. And pay attention. Is there anything happening with your eyes? If you were to intentionally move your eyes, would you move them up and down, in other words, towards your forehead and towards your chin? Or would you move them left and right? So for a little while, move your eyes up and down. And notice if there is any correlation with your feet. Is there some relationship between the flapping of your ankles? That's an interesting one, isn't it? The flapping of your ankles and the movement of your eyes. Do you always move your eyes up when you're opening your ankles and the toes are going away from the shin? Or is it the other way around? Now return your eyes to the place that you started from. Keep the ankle motions going. And this time, intend to move your eyes left and right. And when you want to, press the go button and do it. Don't change what the ankles are doing, though. The ankles are still flexing, extending. The toes are still going towards the shin, away from the shin. But now the eyes are moving in a different plane of motion. And for some of you, this will feel like that old party trick of rubbing your tummy and patting your head. Interesting. Do you have a pattern? Every time that you move your eyes to the right, your toes goes towards your shin, or vice versa? Have you established a pattern, a regularity for yourself? And that's enough. Please stop and rest. So I'm going to talk about the nervous system as if the nervous system was a person. So please excuse that. You know, your nervous system wants to find some sort of pattern, some sort of regularity that it can come home to and go, oh, I can now put my feet up and everything's just going just fine. Nervous systems have that tendency. They want to find regularity. What's the pattern? Because it's less metabolic work when you found the pattern. There's less activity. And that's one of your nervous system's job, is to preserve energy. Please bend your knees, have your feet and your knees together. And instead of thinking that you have two legs, please think that the two legs are now one leg. Have your hands one on top of the other, your forehead resting on your hands. And very, very slowly start to tip both of your legs to your left. I shouldn't have said both legs. I should have said start to tilt your leg to the left. Keep them joined together. Don't let them separate. Don't even let them slide against each other. It's as if they were one leg. And as you tilt your legs to the left, pay attention. Is it possible to get longer and longer through your right side, from the right armpit through to the right hip? Now, a wonderful thing to do, I think it's wonderful because it gives you information. Tilt the legs to the left and intentionally make yourself shorter on the right side, so that the distance from the side of your right hip to the armpit actually gets shorter. And notice what that feels like. Now, that's a very useful contrast. This is the contrast between one way of doing something and another way of doing something. Now, return to what you were originally doing. What's the difference? Were you lengthening the right side or were you shortening? Can you solve this puzzle of tilting your legs that gives you the feeling of the right side lengthening? It doesn't matter whether it's a millimeter of lengthening or 10 centimeters of lengthening. Lengthening is lengthening, more space. Spaciousness might be a nice thing. How do you create that feeling of spaciousness through your right side? Bring your legs to the middle. Stop, rest. This is going to be a one-sided lesson. And now, once again, I'm going to talk about the nervous system as if it were a person. You know, your nervous system wants to. What does it want to? It wants to pick up information. It wants information. It needs information to work with. So if I go back to that metaphor at the beginning, you're going on a public transport trip. Your nervous system wants to know, where am I? Then it wants to plan its route. Where are we going? And then the next one, will I take bus? Will I take taxi? Will I take train? Will I take tram? because each one of those has a different quality to it. Bus rides are notoriously bumpy and unpredictable. Train rides are a bit smoother. Taxi rides, you can catch them when and when you want. You just book them. Yeah? So you make a choice. Nervous systems are like this. Bend your legs. Have the knees touching, the feet touching. Change the configuration of your arms so that the left arm is lying on the floor beside you, palm to the ceiling. The right arm, the palm is on the floor and the right elbow is towards the ceiling. And with this new configuration of the arms, explore the same intention as before. Tilt your legs to the left. And in this new configuration of the arms, is it more possible for you to find or to create that experience of the right side becoming more spacious, more lengthened as the legs tilt more and more to the left? Now, this is a fantastic thing that the right arm is now in a configuration where you can use it for good purpose. Ask yourself, once you've discovered a little bit about the coordination, is it possible to use the right arm less? Now, I did not use it at all, just to not rely on it so much, a little bit less. And this is kind of like an inquiry. When you found a new coordination in your trunk, can it be autonomous, independent of the momentary use of the arm? And when is the arm no longer needed? In Feldenkrais technical jargon, the configuration of your right arm and left arm is an auxiliary movement. It's something that you do for the moment that's useful, and then at some later stage, you can dispense with it because you've discovered a new coordination. Continue doing what you're doing with your legs and make one variation. Instead of resting your head on the floor on one cheek, turn your head so it rests on the floor on the other cheek. I'm being intentionally vague, sorry. Does the direction in which you turn your head make a difference? So let me, if I may, offer you something to look for. Which direction would you have your head turned to make the movement feel less smooth? Now, some of you are letting your legs slide against each other. That's not going to give you anything. You've lost the constraint, and so the whole design of the lesson's gone. You can do that if you like, but that's a different lesson. Yeah, sure. You can do what you like. Now choose the direction to turn your head where the movement is definitely smoother, that you sense, yes, this is smoother. And when it's smoother, feel how the motion flows through the trunk, through the spine, through the ribs in the direction of your head. And there's a moment that it gets to that place just between your shoulder blades. Can you feel for that moment when the movement kind of flows on up in a long spiral and it gets to that place between your shoulder blades? Keep noticing that place between your shoulder blades, and now turn your head, rest it on the floor in the direction that doesn't feel so smooth, and feel what happens in that place between the shoulder blades. There's an interesting phenomenon happening. You've turned your head, and there's this spiral that's coming up, and then it meets this place where you've turned your head and neck, and ooh, they meet. Now turn your head the other way, still attending to that place in that area between your shoulder blades. Notice what happens differently when you return your head to the smooth side preference. Nice. Stop and rest, please. There is this idea that I find absolutely fascinating. Now, please know that I find it fascinating. And of course, you're starting to get the notion that if I find something fascinating, I want to share it with you. So here it comes. We don't learn movements as human beings. We don't. We learn actions in the world. Real life things. Getting the rattle. Putting the fork in our mouth. Unscrewing the lid to the drink jar. Holding daddy's hand. Opening the car door. Sitting on a chair. These are real life activities. I think they even have a technical name for them these days, yeah? The activities of daily life, the ADLs. This is what they were talking about a lot when I was doing my rehab. The ADLs, the ADLs. Okay. So when I ask you to bend your knee, you are able to do that because you can do the kinds of actions in the world that involve bending the knee. You learn to do this abstract thing called bending the knee because you can do those actions. So the learning of actions is primary, and the control of specific movements is secondary. I find that idea interesting because this is exactly what we're relying upon in ATM. The fact that you can control specific movements. Please bend your legs in the way you've done. Put the knees together. Have the right palm on the floor, the elbow high. You can have the left arm anywhere you like. Maintain the configuration of the legs and begin to tilt your legs to the left and take them as far as you can, so long as you can keep breathing. If you can touch the floor on your left-hand side and still breathe, do that and then come back. You can have the left arm anywhere you like. You can use the right arm to push or not to push. You can turn the head in a way that allows the movement to be smooth. And the next time that your feet are close to the floor or touching the floor on the left-hand side, stay there. If your feet were resting, the soles of your feet, if your soles of your feet were resting on the face of a clock, which way would be clockwise? Turn your feet clockwise. And then turn your feet anti-clockwise. Clockwise, anti-clockwise. So you're not drawing a circle in space with your toes. That's not the movement. If your feet were standing on a clock, yeah, it's as if your foot was sliding on the clock face, clockwise, anti-clockwise. That means there'll be a turning in your shin bones. That's it. So if you were completely lying on your left-hand side, your heels at one moment would be going to the ceiling and the toes would be going to the floor. And the next moment, the heels would be going to the floor and the toes would be going to the ceiling. That's it. Beautiful. Notice what happens in your chest when you do that. Can you feel how there's a turning in your chest? Yeah. An arching, turning, spiraling kind of emotion. That's nice, Kevin. See if it's possible for that motion of your feet to arrive in your upper thoracic between your shoulder blades, and then maybe to keep on flowing to your neck, maybe even eventually starting to move your nose left and right. Your feet stay where they are, more or less relative to the floor, and you do a turning motion. That's it. It's a really unusual feeling in this sort of semi-twisted, bent position. It's so unusual. Very hard to have a habit for this one. Wonderful. Now stop, bring everything back. Rest. So one more apology. Once again, I'm going to talk about the nervous system as if it's a human being. It's not. Nervous systems love predictability. But at the same time, they're a very fickle beastie. They like predictability, but they also kind of fall asleep with predictability. It's like Joanne asking me, how come you like watching the same show 30 times? I say to her, because I find something new in it every time. And she goes, but how do you do that? I said, you just look for layers in the plot. So you have to pick your shows. Not every movie has layers in the plot. She gets bored after she watches the one show. She doesn't want to watch it again. But that is an act of attention and skillful means. Nervous systems aren't like that. Oh, this thing again? All right. Switch off. No need to pay attention to that. That position that you were just in is novel. That's going to wake up your nervous system. It's going to go, what the hell? What are you doing out there? Stop that. You're rocking the boat. You're shaking up the house. Not good, not good. So it tries to do what? It tries to find a new regularity. It tries to find, how can I recognize this so I can calm down a little bit and feel at home so I can go to sleep again? And that's why we use novel scenarios in ATM lessons. There's this moment of waking up the system, not too much so that it goes, I don't want to do this, I don't want to play, but just enough to go, what the hell? I need to find a way, or I need to get familiar with this because I want to feel at home again. Bend your legs, put the knees together, the feet together. Have your right arm like you had it before. However, if you think you no longer need the right arm, don't use it. Place your left arm anywhere you like. And now tilt your legs to the left, keeping them together. And see if you can make yourself home lying in that position. Make little adjustments, a little bit more bend in your knees, a little less bend in your knees, a little bit more push of the hand, a little bit less push of the hand, a different position of the left arm, a different position of the head. I can be your slave and I can bring over something to rest your feet on. Yeah. So I could put an artificial ground underneath your feet. For those of you that can't touch the floor, I can put an artificial ground there. And as soon as your feet touch the ground, you see, there's suddenly the nervous system goes, oh, is that where we are? You see, that's too high for you. Would you agree? Yep. Yeah. So make yourself home there. Now, from that place that feels a little bit more like home, return to that same movement. Heels towards the ceiling, toes towards the floor, toes towards the ceiling, heels towards the floor. And as you make that movement, start to move your eyes right and left. Right, left. You're not flexing, extending your ankles. That's not the movement. It's a movement of the feet in the knee joints. That's it. You'll feel a turning in your knee joints. Very unusual. And see if you can find the correlation between the turning of the feet and the looking of the eyes. Eyes turn left, eyes turn right. When does it make sense for the eyes to turn right? When the heels are moving towards the ceiling, or when the heels are moving towards the floor? Just lift them a bit. A bit more under there. There we go. come out of that, return to lying on your front. We didn't do a scan at the beginning, so I'm not going to ask you to scan now. But should you feel a difference spontaneously, note it. Make your way to standing, knowing that you're still in the lesson. So that means you just gradually make your way there. No need to sacrifice the quality of your breathing at all. Now, this is for those people who are already standing. Notice yourself and how you experience yourself having done a lesson like that. And if we truly are what the scientists call self-referential, self-organizing systems, then the chances are each one of you has a unique experience all of your own. Now, it's your choice when you want the lesson to end. You can end it in 10 seconds' time when I say good night, see you tomorrow, or you can let it end when you get home. You can let it end when you go to bed. You can let it end tomorrow, the day after. Maybe it'll never end. Tonight, I suggest that you have a read of the article on Feldenkrais's comments about meditation and how I turn it on its head for awareness through movement. And it's about this, at what moment don't we need ATM anymore? Do we do ATM and we say, oh, that's the lesson over, and off we go? Or do we do ATM in such a way that it's so much a part of our lives that we're doing it most of the time? We're living the kind of life that you don't need ATM lessons anymore. Now, there's an interesting thought. What I'd like to live in that world. John Lennon was right. I'll tell you that joke tomorrow. See you in the morning.